Diesel exports to Saudi Arabia by Russia commenced due to the embargo on seaborne imports of Russian oil products by the EU in February. Russia started redirecting its oil product shipments to North Africa and Asia to deal with the EU ban. Meanwhile, Europe is increasing diesel imports from the Middle East and Asia to compensate for the loss of around 600,000 barrels per day, which it imported before the embargo took effect on February 5. Russia loaded 190,000 tons of diesel cargo in Primorsk, their Baltic port last February. And Refinitiv data by Reuters reveal these were being delivered to Saudi Arabia. And today, let's talk about Saudi Arabia's massive diesel imports from Russia that shocks everyone. Traders have suggested that the Saudi Arabian government might export refined Russian diesel to other countries. In February, the European Union planned to import the largest amount of diesel from the Middle East and Asia in 7 years as a substitute for Russian imports. Before the fuel embargo, Europe purchased diesel primarily from Saudi Arabia and the United States, but Russian diesel was still the largest import. According to BNE IntelliNews, S&P Global estimated a 20% decline in Russia's oil product exports in February. This is the lowest level since May of last year. Russia has reportedly decided to reduce its oil production by 500,000 barrels per day this month due to Western sanctions. And experts say this move could impact the level of oil and fuel exports from Russia. JP Morgan predicts a possible reduction of 30,000 barrels per day in Russian fuel exports due to the EU embargo. However, they also mentioned that the country could sustain its crude oil production at pre-war levels. But it was noted that returning to the pre-pandemic production levels would be challenging. In addition, Russia seems to have found a new ally in Saudi Arabia after being rejected by the Western world. You see, Ukraine was invaded by Russia after massive troops at the border at the beginning of 2022. However, Russia received a boost from Saudi Arabia's Kingdom Holding Company. They invested more than $600 million into Russia's 3 leading energy companies in a subtle move. Then during the summer, as the United States, Canada, and some European nations reduced oil imports from Russia, Saudi Arabia made a strategic decision. They increased their purchase of fuel oil from Russia for their power plants, which allowed them to export their own crude oil. In September, Russia and Saudi Arabia directed the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and allied producers to reduce output targets. The goal was to prop up global oil prices, which were decreasing, and this decision could potentially increase the oil profits of both nations. Now it seems like Saudi Arabia is shifting its focus from the United States to Moscow when you look at all the recent actions. The two countries aren't making an official alliance. Still, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia and President Vladimir Putin of Russia are working together in a way that helps them both. Former U.S. Secretary and Ambassador to the United Nations, Bill Richardson, pointed out that Saudi-Russian relations are clearly becoming stronger. The closer cooperation between Saudi Arabia and Russia makes it harder for the United States and the European Union to isolate Putin. The European Union is preparing to further decrease its oil imports from Russia, which means that Saudi Arabia, China, and India are taking on the role of last resort buyers. During the Cold War, Saudi Arabia and the Soviet Union were enemies. The insurgency against the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan was financed by Saudi leaders. And in recent years, the U.S. oil and natural gas production boom from hydraulic fracturing of shale fields has undercut the power of OPEC and major oil producers such as Russia. As a result, the two countries have become valuable partners with similar interests. This could be due to Saudi Arabia being an autocratic kingdom and Putin suppressing or eliminating most of his domestic political opposition. In late 2014 and 2015, there was a collapse in oil prices. Moscow and Riyadh worked together to stop U.S. companies from taking over the global energy market. They agreed to expand the oil cartel in 2016, which became OPEC+. Their partnership has lasted except for a brief period in early 2020. During this time, the coronavirus pandemic started and oil prices fell, causing disagreements between the two countries on what to do. Bruce Riedel, a former Middle East analyst for the Central Intelligence Agency, observed that